Hello, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. We are pleased that you are joining us today. Not only do we have a special guest on our podcast, but we have a special guest co-host. So last week, you actually listened to our podcast with Sarah Lightshoe, where she talked about letting go and feeling less overwhelmed, which is a perfect segue for our topic today. And on that podcast, we had special guest Amanda Patterson from Caring Therapists of Broward. But today, sitting by my side, 4 weeks away from giving birth, is our very own marketing extraordinaire, Jessica Jefferson, who is all the images that you see, all the behind the scenes work, the marketing, that's all Jessica. So it's really cool to actually have you here today.
Well, I'm usually always by your side. I'm just in the background.
In the background. So it's a pleasure to have her here today. And by the time this podcast airs, we will know if you're having a boy or girl. So that's super exciting.
Yeah.
So Kate is away and unable to be with us today. So, I always say we. So Jessica's going to be my my sidekick, my wing woman today.
She's not even here.
I do, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyways, today we are talking with Frances Harvey, and I'm super excited about this topic because when I learned the word delegate and outsource, it became like the two words that were like music to my ears. So she is from My Solutions Services. And the really cool thing is when Frances and I spoke, she actually was coached by Joe Muirhead and her business. And she talks highly of Joe. And so it's really cool. So we are going to be talking about how, when, and why to outsource your private practice. Hey, Frances, how are you?
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much. And hi, Jessica. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about this too. So let's get going.
Yeah, right. So before we do that, just two quick things. If you're a brand new listener to us, we are rolling out the red carpet for you. We wanted to say welcome to our Startup Nation family. We have a special gift for you. Head over to privatepracticestartup.com, and right there on the homepage, you will see a button for our A to Z cheat sheet, essentials for building and growing your dream practice. Go ahead and download that. And of course, you can always hang out with us in Facebook. Just look for the Private Practice Startup group. You will be approved by Jessica, and we'll interact with you there as well. And one other thing, our podcast today is sponsored by the awesome people at Brighter Vision. They make custom designs, beautifully transformed websites for clinicians specifically. Speaking of outsourcing, website is definitely outsourcing stuff. So if you are in the market for a new website or you're brand new to private practice, we definitely recommend checking out them. If you go through our link, which will be on the show notes page, you get a free month off of your service. So without further ado, let's get started on this outsourcing topic. So Frances, how did you get into the business you are in today?
Well, that's a really interesting topic, and I'm going to try to keep it short. I've been managing businesses for over 30 plus years, coming in and helping people to set up, to create systems, to manage staff, and everything that you can imagine that goes on with running a business. And I did that for a long time. And then I happened to literally kind of stumble upon getting into mental health, and was the director for a very large center in Southern California for 8 years, which was the first 8 years of my career in mental health. And so basically what I did was I took care of everything on the outside of the therapy room. And at one point, I oversaw 26 therapists on staff. I did everything from scheduling intakes to marketing to websites to accountability to hiring and firing and on and on and on. All the hats that you wear in private practice, and did that for 8 years. And then how I segued in to My Solution Services was it was corporate, and we all know corporate is no fun. So I got done. I was just completely done and said, you know what, I want to go do this the way that I feel called to do this. And so I resigned from that position, and I came home and I got my computer and my laptop and my cell phone and said, I'm going to do this the way that needs to be done for clinicians. I need to meet them where they are and customize the work to them and not try to fit them in a cookie cutter. And so 4 years ago, I started the business. It was just me. And it kind of exploded immediately. And about 3 months in, I realized, oh, I need help. Outsource, delegate. Um, and so I started to delegate and find people. And fast forward to today, I have a team of about 17 going on hiring more. And we service strictly the mental health industry and absolutely love what we do. And I would not go back for anything in the world. So that's how I got into this business.
You know, what's funny, Francis, is I posted a post recently on Facebook. I said, no entrepreneur ever says, you know, I want to go back to my job. That just, that doesn't really happen, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So just out of curiosity, what's your favorite thing to outsource?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What's your favorite thing to outsource?
What's my favorite thing to outsource? Well, it's kind of a love-hate relationship with this, because my favorite thing is my phones and scheduling services, because it does really take a lot of time and dedication, because in my opinion, that is the lifeline and the source to practices growing and building, is the phone ringing and scheduling clients.
Exactly.
So I know the importance of it. I'm really, really good at it. I love talking to people, but it served me for a purpose for a long time. But I got to the point where I realized if I was to grow this business, which I kind of didn't really have much of a say in it, it was going to grow, that I had to outsource doing that particular task. And so I now have a pool of about 8 phone specialists on my team that take care of our phone clients, and that constantly grows because the demand is so high. So that's probably one of my biggest outsourcing, if you want to call it, tasks, but I really do love talking to people. So it was kind of like, oh, you know.
Right. And you make a great point, is even though we might be good at something or enjoy it, we really have to look at what is it that I only can do, that I specialize in, and is this a trainable skill, and being able to outsource that. So now with your outsourcing the people that do the phone calls, so are these virtual folks who take phone calls and schedule for therapists?
Exactly.
That's awesome, because actually I see a lot of people post in the group. I'm glad that when we talked before, I didn't know this aspect. So guess what? Your name's going to be all over those posts. So fantastic. So why don't we jump a little bit more into your topic regarding like how, what, when, why to outsource. So what's one of your tips on outsourcing?
Well, you know, one of the things that somebody told me in terms of building my own business and becoming the entrepreneur is something that I always now pass along to my clients and or potential clients when I talk to them. And it is simply, you cannot do this on your own. It's not possible. If you're going to grow and have a literal entrepreneurial business, not just a little sidekick hobby, you have to have help and outsource it. And so knowing, the first thing I would say is knowing and accepting and being okay with making that decision and that move that you have to have help and to outsource. So the question is how to know. Well, how to know is when you ask yourselves, you go to do a task and you say, should I be doing this? I know it needs to get done and it's very important to my business, but should I, as the owner and CEO of this business, be doing this task? Do I want to do this task? Am I good at this task? Am I sleeping? Do I see my family? Those are all the questions that will help you to get to the point of knowing that it's time to move forward and to outsource.
Yeah, great response. I know when I look at things that I need to outsource, sometimes it's actually helpful to write things down of all the things I do. And again, going back to, is this a teachable skill? Can I make a how-to video? Or is this something only I can do? I think there's a lot of times people have like fears of letting go of certain things. What are some of the fears that, especially obviously working with mental health professionals in regards to private practice, what do they fear letting go of?
everything.
Are you saying we're a little bit of control freaks?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that I understand it. I really do. And there's two reasons I understand it. One is because I grew up with a business in my home. So I watched my parents do business, and I watched them do it with the utmost integrity and to the best of their ability. And so I learned from that. So I have that tendency to have that nobody can do it better than me or like me. And I want it done just so. So I have to content with that, and I have to realize, again, if I'm going to grow, that I have to realize that I am bringing people into my world and into my business that are the best and that would do it the way that I would do it. So making sure that, you find those people is critical, which that could be a follow-up podcast for you, Katie. But probably the things that I hear the most is, especially when I do talk to potential clients about doing their phones, that is a huge, huge, huge thing to let go of. And yet it's one of the ones that drive them the most crazy, or they hate it, or they're not good at it. And so in the consultation, I literally address that fear. And the first thing I do is I acknowledge it, and I know that it's there. Sometimes I bring it up and they don't. And when I do, I see, because I do a video consultation, and I literally see them kind of sit back and relax and going, okay, she's got me. She's seeing that, oh God, what am I going to do? But what I do is I address that, and I tell them it's okay to feel that way, but that will change for you in the first week or two of working with us. This will go away.
You're such a therapist on the inside.
Well, kind of, but not really. More coached than anything. So what I'll do is I'll tell them that, first of all, it's okay to feel that way. It's very normal. And then the next thing I do is I go through and I explain to them how we do our services, how my staff is trained. So by the time I'm done with them, they know that we're completely competent and we understand talking to people about mental health on the phone. And so addressing that and giving them the tools to make the decision, knowing that, okay, I can confidently let go. This is not just a typical answering service or a typical, general VA. And I'm not knocking them because they're all good, but they don't specialize in this industry.
Right.
And so when they get that, then it's the beginning of the process to let their fear go. And usually a week or two in, they're like, God, why didn't I do this a year ago?
I can imagine that they actually make more money because they're not missing that phone call by utilizing your services, that they'll have someone available to take the call and answer it if they're in session.
Kitty, I lost your sound.
No, we're still here. Go ahead. Jess was just asking a question.
No, I was just imagining that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not hear Jess.
It's okay. That they actually make more money because they're not missing that phone call. They actually have someone that's going to be able to pick up the phone, speak with the client, and get them on schedule so that they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, kind of like, if you're in session, like I know sometimes I'm in session for 5 hours back to back. And if people call, especially with clients too, because they're calling most often in a time of crisis or struggle. And if you don't answer the phone, sometimes they actually won't leave a message. So the ability, what Jessica's talking about is, the ability to actually have a greater return on your investment with having someone answer the call is really important, for your business.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But that's probably one of the areas that there's a very, very big fear, when they go to outsource. So my recommendation is when you're looking to outsource and delegate, not only do you, want to know and realize that in order for your business to grow that you're going to have to do this and become okay with that, but then do your homework. About, first of all, you need to make a list of what you want in this outsourcing person or company. What is it you want from them? What is it you want them to do, and what do you want to get out of it? You know, how do you want to communicate? What level of experience do you want them to have in your industry? You know, what kind of hours do you need them? What kind of budget do you have? Are you willing to invest in your business in order to grow your business? And that's another big fear, is literally spending the money to outsource. So if you sit down and do your homework and make a list of everything, and then start doing your homework about finding that right fit, you know, asking other colleagues, doing the research, asking for referrals, what is the track record, what are people saying about this person or that company, then you're going to be in a much better place to move towards the actual action of outsourcing.
And what do you find most therapists typically outsource first?
Well, that's an interesting question, Katie, because I don't think there's a typical thing. Like
Okay.
I said, we do a lot of phones and scheduling, but I also work with a lot of clinicians in writing and editing blog work, because I've been writing with them, clinicians, for 13 years, and I write for myself. I co-write. I don't do the writing for them. And I also, we do a lot of just regular editing. We do a lot of maintenance of website. So you mentioned earlier, Brighter Vision is supporting this podcast, and they know us well. We do a lot of work with Brighter Vision with their clients that want a little more maintenance or things done than what the services that Brighter Vision are doing. So we're kind of collaborating in that area. There's a lot of, like I said, the phone work. There's a lot of we're starting to do more bookkeeping and invoicing and, you know, insurance work. We do, I do a lot of coaching, you know, just one-on-one practice coaching, because of my experience as a director, as running an agency. So in systems, and even if it's a solo practice, just systems, and how do I do this? How do I do that? What do I do here? How do I grow? You know, that kind of thing. You mentioned Joe Muirhead, and the other thing I would say is that, you know, if at all in your practice, get a coach or a mentor. Joe's phenomenal. I work with Joe. She's my coach, and I am proud to say it.
Yeah, and it's definitely essential. I did a year of business coaching, and this is actually how I began to outsource and got my virtual assistant and things like that. And, you know, one of the things looking back, if, you know, someone said, if you started your practice over again, or any business, the two things I would do differently is know exactly who my ideal client is and brand right off the bat. The second thing I would do is, before I started touching anything, is I would also begin to already look at, what do I need to outsource? Because what happens is, you know, and we did a podcast with Joe Sanok in regards to lifestyle business, is we jump in a private practice because we think we definitely could do this better. We want more time, more freedom. And interestingly enough, we often become slave to our business.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we're like, this isn't working. You know, where's all that freedom? And there's no family vacations that I wanted. And so being able to create your lifestyle first. So I just did this with one of my interns, where she wants to homeschool her kids. She doesn't want to work weekends. I'm like, this is exactly what you need to be doing. And then looking at outsourcing the other things, like right off the bat. I see a lot of clinicians, you know, and I mean, this is just the mindset. I did it too, right? It was kind of like, well, how do I incorporate? Which insurance liability should I get? You know, which bank account should I get? And I'm like, no, lifestyle business first, outsource. Think about that. You might not be ready for it yet, but that is going to come. And like you said, you know, Francis, it's like, if you really want to grow and scale your business, you have to outsource. Another thing, I just went to, back in August, I went to Guerrilla Business School, I think, and we're talking about systemization. And actually, last year, this quarter, we changed our platform, one of our platforms. But this quarter, we've been systemizing our podcast system, which is great, because we actually, so Jessica does our marketing, and then we have a VA actually in Africa, Ruth, who's awesome. She's in Africa. We've actually completely systemized our podcast system and have been able to hand that off to her and outsource it. So one of the things that I learned is, if you touch it, talk to it or do it, you need to write it down.
Mhm.
That way you can hand it over. And or a lot of things that we do here is we use the Google Drive, and we have a folder called how-to videos. So we screencast a lot, and this is great because sometimes we have to cross train, right? So if obviously Jessica's going on a maternity leave, and if she does something that we don't know how to do, we
Gotta
can
find out.
yeah, we can just go to the how-to videos. So Kate takes a lot of the tech stuff. I get to be the, our CFO, so I handle a lot of financial stuff. But that's another, that, as we call them, ninja tips here,
Yeah.
in regards to outsourcing help.
Well, actually, that's funny that you mentioned that. When we had our Inspire networking group, one of our members mentioned, if you're going to hire someone, have them write your operating manual, how they do it, so that if they need to train someone, the operating manual is already done.
Yes.
So it's not something you have to do. It's something your assistant can do.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. So Frances, what other thoughts do you have about outsourcing?
Well, one of the things that I wrote a series on was in this outsourcing subject here. I wrote one of them. It's about money, and the one thing that I say in here is, your private practice is a business. It's not a hobby.
Right.
If it's a hobby, then it's a hobby, and that's okay. But I believe, based upon what I see in the Facebook groups and most clinicians that I talk to, is this is their income, their world. This is what they went to school with. This is how they segue money into their home. So it is a business. And when you do a business, you cannot do a business free and cheap. You just can't. If it's going to be good and successful and what you want it to be, you can't do it. Now, there are some little things out there here and there, apps and websites that are free, and that's good. But one of the things that I see and I hear and I read all the time in the groups and in conversations is they want to do everything free and cheap. And you're gonna get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So when it comes to outsourcing, and I'm gonna be very blunt and upfront.
Give it to us, Frances.
It's been a pet peeve of mine. It's like when I see people going, I want a VA, or I want to outsource, and I only want to pay $10 an hour. Oh God, I just want to scream. It's like, really? Okay, then you're going to get $10 worth of quality work. And what I say to that is, you got to think about in your business. Okay, you're the clinician, and you have your fees probably anywhere from $100 up for a session. And I know that it absolutely just makes you cringe when people say, well, I only want to pay $50 a session. Okay, then go to a free clinic or, whatever. But
right.
I'm a professional. I spent a lot of time and buku bucks getting my degree and my experience. I have value. Well, that's the same thing when you start looking at seriously having people in your business that do things for you that are professional. Mm-hmm. I always say to my client or my potential client, if people were to go and say, I've got a serious thing going on and I need help, I need surgery, and let's say it's brain surgery, okay? Would you go to a foot surgeon and say, could you do this for me? Because maybe the foot surgeon is cheaper than the brain surgeon. I don't think so.
Of course.
So being cheap in your practice is going to only harm you. And I'm speaking literally from personal experience. When I first started Girls, like I said, I had my phone and my laptop and my computer. That was it. When I left the agency, it was nonprofit, so I had no retirement. I had no savings. I had, it was like me and the road. All I had was a month's worth of vacation pay that I had earned. And all I needed to do was make enough money to cover my house mortgage, because my income covered that house mortgage. So I want the listeners to understand that I get that sometimes money is a challenge, especially when you're starting up or you're in that growth spurt. But I put it out there and I said, okay, I just got to make enough just to do this. And then the first couple of months it happened, and then it started to get more and more and more. But as the business grew, I kept what my draw was at a number that was realistic for what I needed, not necessarily what I wanted, but what I needed in the beginning, just to take care of what I needed to take care of. When you do that, it allows you to take that surplus and start to invest it in your business and in yourself, which is what you're doing eventually, and grow. And then when your revenue grows because you've made that investment, then you can start walking up to a draw of what you want versus what you need.
Right. And, it's interesting in regards to, you're talking about investment, in VAs and things like that. And I've definitely seen things go the opposite way. I've definitely paid a decent amount of money for certain things and not get what I needed. And I think what's most important, I love that you guys do a consultation call. And, if I could offer another tip is, regardless, if it's a low cost service or good service, it doesn't matter, really assuring that you and that party have some type of agreement, contract, or the deliverables are laid out. Kate and I unfortunately had just a really negative experience that was like pulling teeth to get what we needed done. And again, it was lesson learned, right? Like, we didn't clarify what we needed, when it was due by, and stuff like that. So regardless, of who you're hiring, I definitely want to say to lay those things out so both parties are clear. It makes for good, for good business and communication. So, Frances, we are running out of time, but what would you like our listeners to take away from your message today?
Even when you don't think you can, or you're scared to, reach out and get support. It will change your world.
I love that. And I think that's also great. Like we could say that to our clients too. Yeah. A great therapy tagline. So Frances, you really have an awesome giveaway, and it is called what is it called?
It is called The Ultimate Guide for Outsourcing for Therapists in Private Practice.
Awesome. And it's a super easy, it's purple, number one. That makes it good, because both Frances and I love purple.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's going to be on our show notes page, the link to that, but they also can get it at your website, which is mysolutionservices.com. And if you're like me and you didn't get it, make sure you check your promotions box. It wasn't in my spam. It was in my promotions folder. And I emailed Frances like 3 times. I'm like, I didn't get it. Like, it looks like it went through. I'm like, no, but I found it eventually. So Frances, thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Knowledge. I'm sure the listeners who heard you talk about that you guys do the phone calls and scheduling will definitely be calling you, because you're right. I see people ask about that all the time, and we're definitely going to share that in our group. So for those of you who are excited about next week's podcast, or maybe you're listening after the podcast has been released, the next person we're going to have is Phil Singleton. Phil is doing an SEO deep dive, and we actually talk a lot about Google reviews, or just the importance of reviews overall. Phil actually has a really interesting story that led him to Asia, and he speaks, I don't remember if it was Chinese or Japanese, but anyways, you should hang out and join us for that story. Startup Nation, we always want to say thank you for, spending time with us. We hope that you gain a lot of value on this podcast today. If you are looking for a virtual assistant, wondering how to outsource, I definitely recommend reaching out to Frances and her team. And we hope we continue to inspire you from startup to mastery. We'll see you in the Facebook group and on the next podcast. Thanks for being here, Jessica and Frances.
Thank you, Katie.
Have a great day, everybody.